Thank you for the opportunity to Robin Marsh and our organizers in the UK for this opportunity to share a few words with you about the International Association of Arts and Culture for Peace. This organization was established in 2022 by one of the co-founders of the Universal Peace Federation, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, who we also referred to as Holy Mother Han. And the idea was to create a vehicle or a way for artists who are engaged in music, dance, poetry, writing, to encourage them to use their creative abilities for the cause of peace or the purpose of peace. And I have a short video that I'd like to show to begin my presentation. One of my mottos is more music, less talk. So I want to share a short music video. This was from a concert I conducted in Taiwan that was sponsored by a Buddhist organization called the Tzu Chi Foundation. And the Tzu Chi Foundation was established in 1966. It's headquartered in Taiwan, and one of their primary emphasis is to raise money for disaster relief. They help support the victims of the tsunami in Japan, several hurricanes here in the United States. They've even provided aid, food, and medical aid to North Korea. And this was a fundraising concert. And the lead singer here is Israeli singer David Dorr, who I met in Israel on one of my trips to Israel back in 2004. And David sang a very interesting, it was a song that the Tzu Chi Foundation, it's their theme song called Family. And he learned it to sing it in Chinese for the people there. And they were very moved by his efforts. And the words are very meaningful. So I'd like to show that video, and I'll extrapolate a bit more after the video, if we can have that.
Thank you very much. Next song was arranged by Maestro David Eaton, and you are more than welcome to join me and sing with me together.来自你的秀山，而你如果流泪，我会比你更心疼我的梦想，就让你陪我完成，而你给我的爱，让我勇气悲伤。相依相惜，彼此都感恩，因为我们是一家人，分担分享彼此的人生，因为我们是一家人。相依相惜，彼此都感恩，因为我们是一家人，分担分享彼此的人生。
Anyway, I wanted to highlight a couple points, several points, about the moral power of arts. We often talk about aesthetics. We also often talk about the truth aspect. And several years ago, I published a book, What Music Tells Me, Beauty, Truth, and Goodness, and Our Cultural Inheritance. And a central narrative in the book was about the goodness aspect, the moral aspect, and the transformational power of beauty, not only artistic beauty, but the beauty of nature. We understand beauty can have a deep effect on our psyche. It can be transformative. Uh, when we hear music or experience a dance or a beautiful poem, we can be open to new ideas. And I begin the book with a quote by the American composer, conductor Leonard Bernstein. And he says, art cannot change events, but it can change people. It can affect people so that they are changed, because people are changed by art, enriched, ennobled, encouraged. They can act in a way that may affect the course of events by the way they vote, the way they behave, and the way they think. So this concept of art as a transformational agent is something that our founder, Dr. Hak Jahan, also references in her memoir. She says that people think that politics changes the world, but that is not the case. It is art and culture that change the world, because when people's innermost being are opened by art, by culture, by beauty, then they can receive new ideas, new things, and even political regimes can change as a result. So this speaks to the transformational power of beauty. Of course, this is an old idea. This goes back to ancient China, the idea of the moral aspect of art. Cultures of antiquity, China, Greece, the early Christian philosophers, St. Augustine, Anicius Boethius, Thomas Aquinas, and later Martin Luther, Johann Sebastian Bach, Immanuel Kant spoke about the transformative aspect of art and culture. And one of my favorite contemporary philosophers was the British philosopher Roger Scruton. I've read several of Roger's books. And he was an amateur musician. He can compose, play piano. And he made the point that beauty, that the aesthetic beauty, can be the archetype of revelation, that when we're open to new things through art and beauty, we can have epiphanies about things that we maybe hadn't thought about before. And Immanuel Kant also mentioned this when he said, the feeling of freedom and wholeness that the aesthetic experience imparts is thus not merely private, but reminds us of our vocation as moral beings. Okay, so the idea that of the morality, the moral aspect of art and culture, as I said, has been around for many years. I'd like to share a short quote here by an ancient Chinese politician, Lu Bouvet. Lu Bouvet lived about 200 years after Confucius, and he wrote quite a bit about art and culture. And this is a quote from one of his writings. This quote is often attributed to Confucius, but it wasn't Confucius who said it. This was Lu Bouvet. He said, the will of the people living in an area can be known by examining the customs prevailing there, and their virtues can be known by examining their will. Whether a state will become prosperous or face its downfall, whether its king is sensible or unworthy, and whether a person is honorable or corrupt can all be known by the music they enjoy. So this speaks to the power of music as a transformational agent. Plato, Aristotle, Socrates all spoke about this. There was a Greek philosopher, Damon of Athens, who is referenced in some of Plato's writings, who said, if you change the songs of a nation, soon you will change the laws of a nation. He understood that the power of music and beauty could affect how people think, which gets back to what Leonard Bernstein said and Dr. Hak Jahan said, that the power of music and art can be transformational. So this brings up the point. When we create something and put it before the public, what we put before the public has consequences, okay? And there's this moral aspect. Are we And we have a certain power as artists to do that. So the question becomes, how do we use our power as artists in our communities and that which we create? So putting that in perspective, we can understand that art isn't merely about aesthetics, but there's this other aspect about art, which is the goodness aspect, or what we call axiology, the study of values in terms of art and everything, right? So when Dr. Haq Jahan formed or initiated the IAACP initiative, I was actually in Korea at the time at the speech when she spoke about this. And I want to, since we're in Europe here, I wanted to share this quote from her speech when she says, this is from her speech that this was November 22nd, 2020. She said, in the past, the Christian cultural realm waited for the Messiah to come again. An ancient, beautiful culture was formed with the European continent as its center. It is still loved today by all peoples of the world. That culture is the culture of longing for the Messiah. What I want to say now is that although due to the fall, people have been lacking in filial devotion to our heavenly parent, who has endured and waited 6,000 years for us, I wish to see their beautiful arts, which express the love and joy and praise that they return to their parent. Those arts we want to see shining forever through the revolution of the culture of heart. The arts are also a swift path by which the world can become one. So she's referencing a very specific culture, the European culture, out of which much of the classical music, classical art, classical literature came. And this art and culture was motivated, or the impulse in creating this art was a deeply religious and liturgical impulse, and centered on a specific religious belief. So we have an idea or concept that the great art of Europe had a certain role to play in helping shape culture in a way. And it's very interesting to see that there are great symphony orchestras in Asia now, in South America, not only in Europe, right? The most famous youth orchestra program in the world over the last 40 years has been in Venezuela. The Venezuelan Youth Orchestra project, known as El Sistema, the system, has been one of the great youth orchestra programs ever created, and was created in a non-Western culture. But it speaks to the beauty, the transformational beauty, of the universal beauty of this particular art and culture. So whether we're dancers or poets or composers, writers, we have a certain moral obligation to use our art, to use our talent in ways that can advance the cause of peace in whatever we do. So with that, I'd like to thank again the sponsors here for giving me the opportunity to share a few words with you, and look forward to more give and take in the days, months ahead. God bless. Thank you.